First, ensure the grapple gun is active using the swap weapon hotkey. Hold down the fire button to reveal the grapple laser. Aim the grapple laser with the left stick on the controller or with the mouse. Release the fire button to fire the grapple. We can now move the object we are attached to. There are two ways to cancel a grapple line attached to your gun. We can either hit the universal cancel hotkey, the B button on an Xbox controller, or the right mouse button. Alternatively, we can simply tap the fire button. While you have a grapple line attached to the grapple gun, hold down the extend grapple hotkey to extend your grapple line. Hold down the shrink grapple hotkey to shrink your grapple line. Notice that if we extend the grapple line while standing still, we see the ghost grapple. This allows us to manipulate the ultimate length of the grapple line before moving. We can then walk or fly to this length before meeting resistance. Connecting objects together is as simple as firing a regular grapple line. Hold the fire button, aim at the first object and release the fire button. Hold the fire button again, aim at the second object and release the fire button. Our objects are now connected. By firing another grapple line, we can now move both of these objects as a group. There's no limit to the number of objects we can connect together. Every object you find in the game has weight. Here we see Bob's jetpack has enough thrust to lift 2 crystals fairly easily. However, if we add a third crystal, we find that Bob's jetpack lacks the thrust required. Bob's lander has a much higher thrust and can easily lift multiple objects. However, the lander's thrust power is still limited. Add too much weight and it becomes impossible to ascend. Be mindful of how many resources you attach to your lander and where you attach them. Hold down the fire button and aim the grapple laser at any connection node. Notice that the other grapple line becomes highlighted green. Then quickly release the fire button when this happens. This allows us to select another grapple line without firing a new one. Once highlighted, the grapple connection can be manipulated with the hotkeys we've already learned. We can extend the grapple line, shrink it, or cancel it. Any highlighted grapple line will remain highlighted for either 4 seconds, until we highlight a different one, or we fire a new grapple line from our gun. Manipulating a highlighted grapple line in any way will refresh its 4-second timer, and Bob is free to manipulate that grapple line while moving around as normal. An alternative to using the lander to move heavy groups of objects around is to use the grapple line as a winch. First, connect our heavy group of objects together. Then, grapple those objects to something in the direction we want to move them. Notice that our last created grapple connection is automatically highlighted green, and therefore under our immediate control. We can now easily shrink and extend this grapple connection to winch and move our heavy group of objects around. This will be your primary method of moving heavy groups of objects inside tight cave systems and over obstacles. Using Bob's jetpack uses fuel, one of the 3 primary resources in the game. When we are low on fuel, we may choose to use the grapple gun as a source of movement. When hanging from a grapple line, we have the ability to make ourselves swing. This can also happen naturally. Bob can never have more than 1 grapple line attached to his gun, so swinging across a ceiling is as simple as firing a new grapple line as needed. We can also shrink, extend, and cancel the current grapple line to either launch ourselves over gaps or to lower ourselves into caves with more precise control than simply falling. Everything shown so far requires only 4 hotkeys: fire, cancel, shrink, and extend. Yet these simple controls allow us a near endless combination of results. Sometimes we find ourselves hanging precariously from a ceiling, while at the same time wanting to select a different grapple connection. We can see Bob doing this here. Remember that we fire grapples by first holding the fire button down, then aiming, then releasing the fire button to fire this new grapple. However, in this scenario we don't want to fire a new grapple connection when we release the fire button. We simply want to highlight a different connection. We briefly touched on the solution to this problem earlier, but we'll cover it again here in more detail. Here is where understanding the colour of the grapple laser comes into play. There are two simple rules to remember. If the grapple laser is green, it will always cancel our current grapple and fire a new one when we release the fire button. If the grapple laser is red, it will never fire a new grapple when we release the fire button. Using this knowledge allows us to solve our problem. Whenever the laser passes over a grapple connection, it briefly turns red. This gives us a brief opportunity to let go of our fire button without cancelling our current grapple. After doing this, we are no longer moving or holding any controls, but we've highlighted the other grapple line. As mentioned earlier, if a grapple line is highlighted, our hotkeys now control that grapple line. So we can extend, shrink it, or cancel it without affecting the grapple we are hanging from. If we wait a few seconds, the highlighted grapple line will automatically deselect itself. Our hotkeys will now return to controlling the grapple attached to our gun. That's it. There's many different ways to use the grapple gun to move objects around, but we don't need to learn any new tricks to do them. They simply come from practicing and experimenting with the 4 hotkeys we've learned in this guide.